Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hi, welcome to the Innovation Cafe. So
Hey.
let's just wait a few minutes to get more people in. Maybe let's introduce each other. So I'm your host for today, and this is my pet project, the Innovation Cafe. It's a community of people that like innovation or work in corporate innovation, not just design thinking or service design. It's an international community. We don't represent any specific company. We are not here to sell. We are here to learn with each other and help established in legacy organizations in particular to become more innovative, and that's why I invite all of you to come here one of these days and share anything regarding innovation. And I really think that we can learn a lot with each other. So today we have Adrien Gomar. Adrien is a design strategist or a strategist. We met a few years ago while in a famous consulting company. He's a great guy, and he's the rock star this afternoon. So maybe Adrien, over to you, a bit about yourself, and then let's go to the design thinking mindset in this post-COVID world. And thank you all.
Thanks, Hugo. So yes, I'm Adrien Gomar. So I'm in Paris currently. As Hugo said, we met together at a consulting company where we're talking about innovation. I have a background that is a mixed background. I started with a PhD in computational fluid dynamics, so nothing really relevant to design thinking, I would say. But this is the base on which I started to explore design, moving into Dyson as an aeroacoustic engineer, and then in that consulting company, so Bearing Point, and today in a proper design firm. So that's myself. Hugo, do you want me to share the presentation?
Yes, please, yeah. Let's go.
Let's do so. Do you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Shall we wait a few minutes or kick off right now?
Well, if you know how to dance, you can entertain the audience a few seconds more. Yes, we are getting more guests in. Maybe 2 minutes of let's get to know each other. Who wants to unmute and say hello?
Hello there, everybody. I'm Paul Lopes. I work in IT and IoT company. So we developed IoT devices platform and also product development services. I'm currently based in Finland and I'm Portuguese.
All right, who wants to go next?
I'll go next. My name is Paula. I'm based in Dublin. I worked for Microsoft as a marketing program manager until the COVID emergency started, and hopefully I will go back to a role there because I really love the job and I really think it's an innovative place to work. But I really hope I will have some inspiration here, and of course I can give my contribution.
All right, who wants to go next? Let's go.
Okay, I'll jump in. Kevin Hassel. I run Agency My, which is a small digital agency, just 8 of us, delivering digital work for organizations facing critical or high value change.
Very good. Who wants to go next? And by the way, why are you here?
I can jump in next if you can hear me.
Yes.
Hi, Hugo. Great to see you again. Hello, everybody else. My name is Kevin Sexton. I'm dialing in from Dublin, where I work with Bearing Point, a European firm-wide consultancy in the space of innovation. And previous to that, I worked in the startup space with the Digital Accelerator. investing in small early stage startups. Many of them have scaled to quite a large size at this stage. And previous to that, in my early days, I was a communications designer and ran a studio here in Dublin, which we grew very successfully to an international client base. But I'm here to learn from all the great minds that can teach me a lot. And if there's something I contribute as well, I'd be delighted to do that. Really looking forward to it, and great initiative.
Good to have you here, Kevin. Okay. Who's next? And then Adrien, the floor is yours. The stage is yours.
Okay. You want me to kickstart the presentation then?
Yes, let's start. We already have a few guests online. Adrien, please.
Yep. Okay, great. Do you hear me well? Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So today I wanted to talk to you about the importance of a design thinking mindset in a post-COVID-19 world. So essentially introducing design thinking and how that could help. So
sorry, if you guys can mute the microphone while Adrien is speaking, that helps. Okay.
Yes. Cheers.
Okay.
Awesome. So as I said, I'm Adrien Gomar. I had a mixed background, as I introduced in the beginning of this call. I have a mixed background because I didn't start it as a designer, but I learned my way through it. Basically starting with a PhD in computational fluid dynamics, so heavily relying on computing how the fluid behaves around airplanes and engines. And that led me to Dyson, where I started to have a glimpse into what design is and how it can be so powerful, so to speak. And when I came back to France as a technology consultant, this is where I struggled like applying technology properly. And this is where I came back to design. So back to the user's need. And this is where design thinking just rang a bell. Like that was one way to innovate. That was one way to apply everything together in a manner that made sense. So this is why I personally love design thinking. I think it's a great approach, and I want to talk about this today. Today, I'm a design strategist at Adrien, so a design company. So this is what I'm currently doing. So to get started, the real question is, what is design thinking? So I want to take a few minutes to introduce you to the concept of design thinking, what it is, what are different steps and how it works. So first, design thinking is an approach composed of 5 steps. This is the general presentation of it. There are many versions of it, 9 steps, 7 steps, 4 steps, but the main one is like 5 steps. The first step is empathize. So this is the step in which you put yourself into your user's shoes. So this is really a human-centered approach where you start with the user's need. Okay, you don't start with the technology, you start with the user's need. And the empathize one is really like put yourself into your user's shoes, try to learn what challenges they face so that you can really understand the problem you are facing. The second step, once you've put yourself into the user's shoes, is to define then your problem, because by the time you've put yourself into your user's shoes, you might start off with a problem being actually the wrong one. And this empathize steps allows you to take some elements and to understand what is the real challenge that the people are facing. And this is the one that you want to really reframe so that this is the right problem to solve. So essentially the first 2 steps are try to understand your user, really put yourself into their shoes, really observe them, interview them, and so on, so that you really understand how they think, so that then you can define the right problem to solve. One thing that we tend to do in the define phase is to actually to go from a point of view to a how might we. We use that terminology because it's really helpful. It's a good way to start a sentence. It's a good way to frame a problem so that it gives you the energy to want to tackle it. So let me give you a brief example of it. Imagine you have a point of view being the following. So you observed in an airport people waiting for their plane and so on. And you have that following observation of a father of 3 children whose flight has been delayed. And he needs, actually, because the flight has been delayed, he needs to entertain the children so that the children doesn't annoy the people that are already annoyed by the airplane being delayed. That's a point of view, that's an observation of something. The how might we could be, how might we make the wait the most exciting part of the trip? So this is reframing the problem, changing it, flipping it, so that it can give you the energy to then really solve something interesting. Then once you have a good problem, you can try to solve it in a good manner. So what we use is ideation methods, brainstorming being one of them, but there are many others. And this is something that I stress a lot. Brainstorming is only a sub part of one step of the design thinking. So if ever you hear someone saying, oh, I'm going to do design thinking, and then they just go on a brainstorming session, this is just a small element of it. And there are many ideation methods. And the point of that step is really to generate as many ideas as you want. We call it convergent and divergent thinking. At that step, we are really into diverging, exploring a lot of stuff, a lot of crazy stuff, and we don't refrain ourselves, we just explore a lot. So it's really taking the creative juice and just having as many as the ideas as you can. Then, based on those ideas, you want to prototype them, because what you want to do is to make things tangible. You want also, second thing of that phase is to build to learn, because you might think of an idea, but when you start to build it, you actually learn more elements on your idea or learn more on your problem. So what you want is to make it work in a quick manner. So it's really on a rough prototype so that you can iterate quickly, but yet you want to prototype. You want to make something tangible that user can touch. And this is what is the last step. You've prototyped something. So you started with wicked problem, and you came back to a prototype that you want them to give to your user so that they can try it, test it, and then iterate on it. This is one of the crucial points, because most of the time you will fail, and that's okay to fail. You are learning. This is the learning curve. And then what you want to do is iterate. Based on the feedbacks that you have on your test, either it's challenging your very first empathize phase, or it's challenging your problem, maybe it's wrongly defined, or it's challenging your ideation. It's then, it's time to iterate. So that's one way of seeing design thinking. It's an approach. Second way of seeing design thinking is that it's a mindset. It's a mindset inspired by the way designers work, leveraging empathy, prototyping, and collaboration. So you see that these are the same kind of ingredients, but my point being here is that, well, not everyone is a designer, but everyone can be a design thinker. If you embrace those mindsets that are actually shared with other methods or other approach like the agile, like the lean startup and so on, if you share those mindsets, then you can really leverage design thinking. And the last one that I wanted to talk about related to design thinking is that it's strategic by nature. The very first people that started to think about that design thinking stuff were meant to say, they meant that design was too strategic to be left to designers. So they wanted to, let's say, give those tools to other people, share those tools so that they can really solve problems in a better manner. This is strategic also because this is always balancing three things: desirability, viability, and feasibility, which is essentially the user's needs, the technological or engineering constraints, so the building constraints kind of, or the making it constraints, and the business outcome. This is the three things that we want to mix together and make sure that we always have a good balance. But yet, this is a human-centered approach. So we always start with the user in mind. So we want to balance it right, but we always have the focus of the user. So this is what design thinking. And one question that tends to come out of this is, when can I apply design thinking? Well, design thinking can be applied whenever there is an interface. And when I say interface, I'm not talking about application. I'm talking about a layer until which you have your company exchanging with your user. Okay, so it could be in a shop, because when users are coming into a shop, they are exchanging with your company. It could be within an application. It could be anything like that. So this is where design thinking is really relevant. It's relevant because, again, it's trying to solve the problem from the user's eyes. So trying to come up with the best solution for the user. And as this user is interacting with your company in that context, then this is relevant. Okay, so now how can design thinking help? COVID-19 really forced like half of the population to go on confinement. So all of our life is impacted. Today, I'm speaking in front of you in a camera. My wife and my children are over there. They are like making some noise. This is impacting all of us. It's impacting the way we are working. It's impacting the way we are going to shops. It's impacting the way we are going to perceive like health and so on. It's impacting a lot of stuff. So our daily life is impacted. The habits are changing. E-work being the most obvious one, I would say, because everyone has now, a lot of people massively tried out e-working, which is something quite new. And the extreme that we had previously to that situation is becoming a little bit like the mainstream. So this is the time where design thinking can help. It can help because by leveraging the three key mindsets that I talked to you about, you can then first empathize with your user. And that extreme situation this is literally the time where you want to start to observe, interview, empathize, and identify extreme people. Because look at everything, every business. Your company, from one day to the other, they had to put like half of their staff into e-working. Look at the grocery shop. They are now having to retain people from entering, having to have like a sort of SaaS for people to jump in and so on. Look at, for instance, I used to go to the food market. They cannot open. So what happened is that those people, we managed to contact them on Facebook, and they are now making delivery. This is their business pivoting. This is their business changing. It's changing because the situation is completely new, completely different. So as a design thinker, we tend to use this to observe and really see how people react, see how people do things. And this is where you can learn a lot. If you want to know how you can learn a lot, so what tool you can use, I'm proposing you to go to the design kit of IDEO that has a lot of methods that you can use. It's very simple, very easy to get and to apply. And this is where you can get started to jump into that empathize mindset. The second one is collaborate. We need people to work together. And this is what we are trying to do here. We are trying to share amongst other people so that we can learn from each other. And one of the elements of design thinking is collaboration and the facilitation techniques, because designers can be like in the proper role designing stuff based on a brief, but they're also really good at facilitating. So trying to align those three circles that I was talking previously about, like feasibility, viability, and desirability. And this is what we want. We need people to align all the people so that we can find a solution together. So embrace ambiguity, give yourself permission to explore, and try it. if you want to understand a little bit more about that facilitation or that collaboration, that extreme collaboration, I would say, I gave you 2 links. The first one being the Lightning Decision Jam, which is, I would say, a shorter version of a design sprint, a very, very drastic shorter version of it. But it's a great way to try it, to experiment it in 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. You can start with a problem up to solution that you want to explore. The second one is the D-School Crash Course to Design Thinking, where they essentially have a session of 1 hour to 1 hour and a half, where they start with nothing, just a problem. They have all the people exchanging on that problem, then going through all the different phases. And this is a great way to see how you can, as a design thinker, put people into that motion of trying to solve a problem. The last one is prototype. What you want to do is to make things tangible. I'm not in your business, so I don't know what your prototype will look like, but there are many, many ways to make your product, your application, your service look like it's real, even though you haven't put that much money inside it. One obvious for digital experience, there are a lot of tools, but I invite you to explore what is called POP, which is an application that stands for prototype on paper, which is essentially you're going to prototype your application on a paper, take pictures of this, animate them, so put links inside them and put that very application into your users' hands. This is great to gather feedback, understand if your value proposition is right, if what you're trying to do is accurate. Then you can have obviously other prototyping methods, like some of them at Dyson, they use a lot, they leverage a lot cardboard. And if you want to have a look at this, they actually released their engineering classes for young people, where they explore the benefits of cardboard. So if ever you are in a product element and you want to explore that thing, you can use cardboard, for instance. So that was brief, but I didn't want it to overwhelm you with that. But if I can recap a little bit what I just said, is that first, design thinking is 3 stuff: an approach based on composed of 5 steps that I went through and that you can iterate on. So empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And you can start with any of them, but as a beginner, I would definitely suggest you to start with empathize, unless you already know the process, and then you can start at any phase. Second one is the mindset. The mindset is the very ground on which it starts. And this mindset is, again, empathize, prototyping, and collaboration. Okay, and this is where we develop that facilitation stuff. And it's strategic by nature because it's trying to align 3 core elements of any business, almost, is the user's need, the business outcome, and the technological constraint. And so how can design thinking help? Obviously, I shared you on the 3 main mindsets, few elements that you can get started with. And this is where, if I were you as a business looking at the impact of COVID, of how it will change your business, this is where I would start. Let me stress that even on those 3 words, I would definitely stress the empathize one, because to me, this is where most of the innovation starts, because this is where you actually understand how your user is perceiving stuff, and so how you can help them. So thanks, that's all, guys. Any question?
Thank you very much, Adrien. I would like to start with probably the first question. What do you mean by a design thinking mindset?
What I mean is that the thing that I like about the mindset is that it means that anyone can have it. So basically, it's something that you can cultivate and that you can actually then develop. What I mean by a design thinking mindset is definitely those 3 elements. So having the ability to empathize, having the ability to collaborate, and having the ability to prototype. it may seem really ridiculous, but when you come at a meeting, come with a prototype. Always something tangible that you can show to your colleagues, that you can let them play with. Because otherwise, ideas is just words. We have all a different interpretation of ideas and of words that can be shared. And so this is one of the elements. The second one is the empathize one, where it's trying to always put yourself into the other one's shoes. So if you have a user coming in, if you interview, if you observe a user, don't think about yourself, but think about them. How do they see things? Because this is what you want to try to solve. And the last one being obviously the collaboration. So this is what I meant by those design thinking mindset is, these are three main ones, but there are like 7, 8 that you can explore, and like learning from failure and so on, iteration. So yeah.
Hello again, this is Christine. I just have actually a quick question. So I'm a consultant coming from the banking sector in my previous life, and I'm an executive coach today. And like everybody, I'm looking at how the needs actually of leaders are moving with this COVID thing. And I was wondering, talking about a service to offer to the client rather than a product, what would change in the process of design thinking?
In the process itself, so in the approach, I would say nothing really. You would start with the same thing. The main thing that would change is the prototyping and test. This is where you differentiate the most based on your business. So if it's a service that you are trying to do, your prototype won't be the same as if it's a product. But that being said, and this is why we call it the design thinking, because most of the designer work in this kind of approach somehow. And so if you're coming in a service-led organization, or if this is what you're looking at, I would encourage you to definitely look at how you can prototype your service. There was, I think you are all, or you heard of Jake Knapp that wrote the Design Sprint book. There was an experience there where they were having that service that was somehow also a product in an hotel, of having a robot that would help you. This moment of interaction, this is what you want to focus on, to know, okay, what moment of interaction I'm gonna have to deal with, and how can I make a prototype that is way cheaper than what I'm trying to build. If you manage to find that solution, if you manage to find a way to doing it, some people are using cardboard, some other people are using, you know, those white, I don't remember the name, but white, really light, somehow cardboard, but this stuff to prototype it. This is what you could get starting with. Does that answer your question, Christine?
Yeah, just because I think that the difficulty, if you want, in all of this process is, yes, when you have a service, is how really to be able to prototype it, because it's not as easy as having a product, actually. So that's the difficulty in this. And the other thing that I have been thinking about is, you know, the 5 steps that you talk about in the beginning, about empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. I was thinking about the fact that define is really the critical part, in the sense that how really to be able to understand what is and how to frame actually properly the problem is really crucial. But then again, the cycle of testing is what is going to help you in the end.
Okay,
So,
I'm very sorry, Christine, I lost the end part of what you said. So you were struggling with that phase of prototyping, right?
Very quickly, because I don't want to take a lot of time from other people. I was saying that
that's fine. Eric, if you want to help.
Yeah, I think to kind of jump on that one, Christine, it is Christine, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you need to see your service as a product. So without knowing what the service is, but if you're joining two different group of people together to either like as a model, like an Airbnb type model, or if you're so you need to kind of, you can prototype that, you can prototype the workflow um, through the service, even if it's a mock-up of what the workflow would look like, or a chart, and you bring that to, it gives the visual would give something to talk to your client with. So if it's not an actual working mock-up, like an application, if there's no application for the service, but it's about connecting people, if you bring the diagram about how people would connect, how they work together, which part is involved, a storyboard, really. So bring a storyboard of your service to a meeting and walk people through that. And that's just as good as a prototype, a physical prototype. I don't know if that helps, but
Okay. Gives ideas. Thank you, Eric.
no problem.
It's Kevin here. I remember actually, Ugo, when you were in Dublin, you prototyped a service, and I remember it was really clever. Ugo used a number of different videos that really looked like a really compelling service offering, and he pushed that out to test that, and it was really, really, as I say, compelling. It really looked like a real service, but it didn't exist, but it was designed to test the market. So that was a YouTube video. I thought that was really fantastic, Ugo. Maybe you might talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so videos, explainer videos sometimes
Yeah.
are good to show how the service looks like. And then if there's interest, if there's traction, we can go and probably develop a bit more of that experiment. So the prototype can be the prototype of an experience, of a new service, of a physical product, of a digital product. And Adrien, very well, he mentioned cardboard. And I've seen prototypes of front offices in cardboard, just to understand, for instance, how long does it take to do something? Can we optimize that cost, the time to do something? So instead of spending a lot of money in a new, beautiful, shiny physical front office, maybe we can use cardboard, and we can invite employees to design with us that physical experience. This in government is particularly useful because we can start small, learn how it works, and then we can scale that solution instead of spending a lot of money with an untested assumption. So the thing is learning by doing, then with data, decide what the next iteration will be.
And
Who else
I just,
sorry, please go ahead.
Can I just go into something else there, Ugo? Sorry, just in relation to Christine and the points about empathizing, defining, ideating. I just wanted to go back to Adrien's point, which I thought was fantastic and really well made, is that, in fact, before we go all down that route, if you don't get the empathy piece right, you're wrong straight away. And I think that's a part that a lot of us struggle with because we want to get over to the ideation solutions very quickly. And staying with that problem, that undefined problem piece is really important. And that's where empathy comes in, because in my days in startups, and in that space, you know, I often would see a startup coming in with maybe an idea of what the solution was that they wanted to, you know, they felt they understood. And rather than doing really good customer discovery, which is really a fantastic empathy piece, look at customer dev labs, really great tips there. They really focus on the empathy piece and understanding the problem. So a number of questions around, tell me about the last time you did that. What were some of the challenges you experienced? Why was that difficult? We have a tendency, if we're not too careful, to go back into, oh, I think I know what the solution is. So don't you need a glass of water? Isn't that the thing you need? Whereas actually we're not hearing that that person maybe has another need. I just wanted to bring that back to Adrien's point, that that empathy piece is so, so important, because if you get that wrong, you'll struggle all the way forward after that. And prototyping will be the least of your problems.
That's true.
That's a great point, Kevin. Any tips on how you do that in an organization that's already established in their ways and methodologies and practices, and try to bring them back into the problem space? Because very often, well, as a personal experience, I joined an organization in the middle of their development cycle, and they haven't really kind of spent enough time in the problem space, so they kind of went down some sort of rabbit hole and got stuck in different parts for that reason. Trying to bring them back, there's a lot of frustration on about like, well, we've done that already. We've passed that stage now. We're moving on. So any tips, Kevin or even Adrien, if you have any experience around how to kind of change the mindset of people? I've tried a few things. Some worked, some didn't work. So I'd be curious to see if other people have faced similar problems.
Yeah, if I can jump in that one, definitely I've tried 3 things. Some of them work, some of them don't work. What I usually do is try to first convince them. So obviously in established organization, they have a process, they have ideas for things, and this is for the good reasons, because this is how they work, and this is how it's most efficient for that organization. So first I'm trying to convince them to either test what they've been building, so making a quick prototype now to test their assumption, or either going back on, okay, let's research that bit because we think we don't have the full information. That's the first element. If I don't manage to do so, then I try to use my network, and from time to time I can reach people in the same organization that are willing to share, or that are willing to give me access to users. For instance, the customer service is just, customer and marketing services are the ones that you want to be friends with, because this is the ones that can provide such inputs and such link to them. And the last one is the guerrilla one. So go out on the field, just document it, see it, and so on. But sometimes it's difficult. I have to say there are times for which it's really difficult, but yeah, that would be the 3 things. Maybe other people have other ideas on that front.
I don't have an idea, but I have a similar problem. I was wondering if you have some kind of good structure or organizational structure, or where do you see this being implemented? Just for the context, I'm an innovation manager at a grocery retailer in Portugal, and we have a dedicated team of innovation. And basically, we are trying to foster innovation across the company, and we are trying to spread the word of design thinking with things like formation, training. But most of the times what happens is people really enjoy the training, but then they go to their regular job and do exactly the same thing that they did the day previous to the training session. So I already read having an innovation team doesn't have, or not having an innovation team. Do you have some kind of magic potion to everyone?
Well, like I said, I've a bit like Adrien. I've experienced both sides, like kind of in the organization I've joined. So with smaller groups, it's easier. But I think instead of bringing them through training, what the tool really that I found, because we're a remote organization, I also had to deal with we're doing everything remotely, so that was another challenge. But what I did is using the Lightning Design Jam template and walk them through that, like on a problem they were facing. And I thought that worked really well, because first it's short, so you don't book them for the day, because that already kind of is challenging doing that on Zoom or like so. So I was looking for something that was compressed, but that would kind of walk you through most of the phases. And actually, at the end of that, you're left with concrete action items to move to the next phase. So they see results really quickly. You start with something that work, the things that work well, so it kind of gets them talking about the good stuff and all that, and then you move into kind of, okay, well, but what can be improved? And so it's really walking them through a full design sprint in an hour and a half. And I think the fact that they walk out with concrete examples or concrete actions in their hand, you might not have developed a prototype at that stage, but you might be very well set on the way of developing one after the hour and a half. Like I said, training is interesting for getting to know what the philosophy behind design thinking or the methods that are used. But I think if you don't apply it, like say, people go back to their desk and they won't be using any of those methods. So for me, anything that can give them hands-on.
Yeah. Just for the record, my training session is a full day, but it's 2 hours of theory, and then the 6 hours it's applying in a sprint. Like I said, they love it because in the end of the day, they have something concrete, but next day it's a new day and it's the same as the old one. But okay, it's something that
I can understand that, and I think how I measured success is when someone came back to me with a mural. I use mural, not Miro, but we did that mural there with their problems, and I think that's where we're going. So I knew I was having an impact because someone else used it in the organization. So if I get one ally there, then maybe there'll be another second one or third one, and it'd be kind of. But yeah, it's trial and error.
That's another problem that I have, is that people loved it, and then a few months after they say, "Hey, Luis, remember you did some very interesting thing with us? Come again, we need you." And everyone is telling, "Come again, we need you." And they are not applying for themselves. They only want us, or they want us to be a facilitator or to help them.
Guide them through it again, and yeah.
And we are only 5, so we cannot go to the entire company. But okay, it's just to share.
There is a good thing on that one is the design maturity of companies, and this starts with different steps. It's really like baby steps through baby steps. The first step is the one that you mentioned, Luis, is that they want you to do it. So they want you to execute something. You know, they have an idea, they want you to do the design thinking magic, you know? And then step by step, you go up to the point that the organization is actually led somehow by a design thinking, or is a design-led organization. And this is where design is at the core of it. And they start with research, and they start with going on the field and so on. And from what you said, Luis, what I would highly recommend is don't shut the door on those projects that they offer you, because this is actually the first step. You want them to see from their eyes what you can do with their problem. And then they might be in the position that they are willing to learn how to do it so that they can do themselves, you know?
Is that the Danish design ladder you're referring to there, or is there that design maturity model?
No, there are several ones. I think there is one from the DMI, which is Design Management Institute. I think there was one also published, I think, in the McKinsey report. There are a few different ones, but it's always somehow the same kind of layer, which is like 5 steps, and the the first one being like really they are just they want you to execute.
This is a typical problem, how to start an innovation movement. That can be the topic of our next Innovation Cafe. But by the way, there's a book called Pirates in the Navy that talks precisely of how to start the entrepreneurial movement. Or else what happens many times is that it becomes innovation theater. Everybody talks about design thinking, a few talk about innovation, but it's not adding value, it's not creating value. And we've seen this, I've seen this before, Post-its, they become popular, but then it's not going to change the core business. So this is one of the reasons why we started this Innovation Cafe, because many organizations, in particular big ones and established, still don't get how to do this, how to make it happen. And it's not an easy problem. So I think we all share the same pain. But now that there is a burning platform, there is a need because of COVID-19, I think the time is now. Another reason why we started this project, the Innovation Cafe, is because there's a need to accelerate and to learn more about innovation, how to really add value to clients, to employees, to society, applying all of these methodologies that are designed to explore new things, to explore new services, to explore new products, and not just to exploit existing ones. And large organizations are really good at exploiting business models, established business models. They are not good searching for new business models. Startups are really good on the explore side, and large organizations are optimized for efficiency. And these two worlds are completely different. That's why now it's popular to talk about ambidextrous organizations, organizations that are able to explore the future while being focused on in the current fiscal year, optimizing the operation. Precisely, it's a book from Tendai Vicky. Pirates in the Navy. I strongly recommend you guys to follow him, the author, and to read that book. Any more questions for Adrien?
Yeah, one question, Paula here. One question about brainstorming. As you mentioned, Adrien, it's very often brainstorming is something that goes by itself, or at least is perceived as something going by itself. I was wondering, especially because the client perceives the disruptive power of brainstorming, how do you keep brainstorming controlled and try to preserve what you created before in the empathize and define phases? So how can you make brainstorming work as the third step instead of being a step by itself?
As far as I'm concerned, I think it's crucial to share the research that you've done. So to share the empathize and what you've collected on the field. So the key element to secure that ideation step, if I understood well your question, to me is that you should share properly the insights that comes out of the field when you've made your observation or interviews or stuff like this, because this is where you're going to summarize what you've seen, what you've heard, what you understood from the people. And what I tend to really keep always very securely and in a transparent manner is the real fact that I took from the field. So either a picture or either a verbatim where you can go back to the audio recording or to the video recording, so that at each and every step I can say, yeah, this has been said at that point, and this is why we are ideating on that element. So that would be my answer on my front. I hope it helps.
Okay, so good preparation and keeping them on a track.
Yeah, you want to put because it depends on how it works, because sometimes you can have like you can take the executive with you for, I don't know, half an hour and have them listening to the conversation where you are interviewing one user, for instance. So you can literally get them on the field with you. If that is so, then this is perfect, then the ideation will be easier. If you can't, then let's try to come back with proof and so that you can transfer that knowledge in a transparent manner, so that they don't feel that it's only you talking, but it's more like you representing a voice of the users. So that would be my advice. But maybe you guys on that cafe have other ideas.
If I may, I haven't introduced myself. I was here last time too, but I think I met Hugo a few years ago in Brussels. I don't know if he remembers, but I would dispute what you said, Hugo, that large companies are very efficient. I think they're extremely inefficient. For some, I mean, I don't know what. I mean, maybe someone wrote a book. Depends on the company, obviously, but large companies, and I know a few people. I have a few friends all over Europe and the world, and they work in different companies, and the stories are always the same. I mean, of course, they like to innovate and do all kinds of things, but the company is usually very inefficient, and the larger it becomes, the more inefficient it is. And I had the same. When I was living in I lived in Belgium for 6 years, and I worked for a multinational there, and I founded the research center at that for the Benelux subsidiary, and I had that experience. I mean, we had many different projects involving artificial intelligence, technology, drones, so robotics and software, and so we built MVPs, and these are all very nice projects. PR stuff was great for PR purposes, but actually the projects that had the most impact were the smaller ones that were destined to increase the efficiency of the corporation itself. For example, I mean, we produced drones that flew autonomously, but we couldn't sell them. It's just, you know, very cool things are very hard to sell. what really had an impact on the company were the small things, like the little app to solve efficiency problems within the company. Like you would figure out, if you talk to someone from one department and someone else from another department, you'd figure out that they were doing something that took 3 days and it could just take 1 minute if you had an app for that, or a little application to do something. And once we did this, and that you were solving these problems that were essentially automation with apps to just reduce dramatically the amount of time it takes to carry out certain kinds of processes, then you'd figure out that the company actually started having the mental space for the more innovative things. So, you know, I might dispute this idea that we might want to explore instead of exploit, because when you exploit, and especially you automate and become more efficient, you truly become more efficient by identifying these little problems in the company. You create the mental space for people to, you know, for people to be ready to take the next step. Doing the opposite, and I'm guilty of making that mistake of starting with the big stuff, then puts you in a very tough position where, okay, we spent some money, we gave you guys and your team leeway to just try all kinds of different things. Where's the return? And if you have very innovative things, it's going to be very hard to sell. They're usually going to be more expensive, and you didn't solve any problems. So I would suggest that it's maybe a good idea to first focus on the smaller problems, the ones that really solve those little things that you wouldn't even, because I with my background, I'm a mathematician, and with my background, I always think of the big stuff. And it was a big lesson for me when we made these mistakes at first, that I shouldn't have done that. I should have just, you know, go talk to the secretary and ask her, what's your big problem? And then she'll tell you, oh, you know, whenever I'm trying to solve all these things that I have to solve here, all these papers, it takes me 2 days to do something that you go to the developers and say, can we solve this person's problem? And they say, yeah, we can just build an app in a week, and she won't have to do that anymore. It'll be automated. And then people will start giving you credibility, say, wow, this person actually solves problems that are relevant for us. And they'll start listening more and more. So I know it's just exploitation and exploration go hand in hand.
More questions?
I'd just like to chip in an example of design thinking doing what the previous person just described. In a big car factory, using design thinking, we kind of established that one of the pain points of the people was just finding cars. They used to lose cars, and they didn't lose cars in the sense they were stolen or gone. They're just on a 300-acre site. How do you find the specific white version of the car that you're looking for when there's hundreds of them parked out there? And that was a kind of, you know, $5,000 solution that got used something like 60 to 80 times a day and really made a difference. And that company really bought into design thinking once we'd cracked that simple thing. So it wasn't, you know, it's just echoing with an example, the point. And you know, the solution was a simple app that geotags where someone leaves a car. They scan the VIN number, and then when someone wants to find that car, they can retrieve the coordinates of it. So yeah, agree with what you've just said.
Who wants to go next?
I might just pop in for a second. I'm going back a couple of points, but just in relation to that sort of, you know, buy-in and mindset, the piece that I use that I find really works is the design squiggle, because it kind of sums up where we all are at various stages of the journey. Over on the right-hand side, if you note, we have that very straight line, which is all around the certainty, solution, tiny incremental improvements. You know, improvements can make a big difference, but that's kind of, when I present that to anybody, I say, this is where we all like to live, is around certainty and solution. But the real gold is when we move slightly towards the middle, where it gets a little bit bumpier, where we're doing a little bit of engagement, we're doing a little bit of empathy, we're doing a little bit of listening and interviewing, active listening. And if we really get brave and build our confidence around that little move towards that center part, then, as the guys have just said, you know, we start building up our confidence, go, wow, this is giving us real value. we were able to exploit this and move quickly from the bumpity bit in the center, quickly over to the right-hand side area of solution where we're comfortable, but we were able to take that little nugget and make something out of it, like the car founder or whatever. And I think that's a really good point, that we don't want to bring people all the way to the left, of the design squiggle really early on, because that's where the blue skies and the great ideas are, but they take money and they take time. And yes, I know we can iterate and prototype and do things low, but I think it's building confidence in that middle area maybe. And I had a meeting 2 days ago or yesterday, I think it was, where that came very much to light, because I usually overlap that design squiggle with the 6 stages of design thinking that Adrien just brought us through. And if you think about it, over in the far right on that implement and design thinking is actually like a build, or, you know, if your terms of development stages, that's where you're kind of finalizing your product and you're building it and you're polishing it, so you're kind of very clear on all certainty. But that's kind of where agile development lives, if anybody's comfortable with familiar with that agile software development. But the point was made by the customer was, yeah, we spend 95% of our budget over there in the right hand side on that build and using agile to build the thing right. But the point was, do we know we're building the right thing? And it's moving back towards that center area that gives you the confidence. The other piece of that is, so I usually use that at the very beginning. If somebody isn't too sure, you kind of go, well, we're all probably comfortable living over here, but it's just about knowing that there are processes and there are tools, and they're like you know, like the customer development interview approach, which is a very structured approach. There are tools that can take us into that bumpy area and make us feel a little bit more comfortable with uncertainty, because nobody wants to live in uncertainty, right? So if we can give it a few tools, it's in our supermarket or wherever it is, that allows us to move into that area and then quickly get back into comfort zone fast. But at least we're starting to explore. Don't take them too far into the horror, scary land on day one. But I like the design squiggle for that reason, because it makes an awful lot of sense. And it's on the left-hand side where all that gold is. But it also overlaps beautifully with the steps of design thinking. So just a few thoughts there.
That was really helpful. Who else wants to share something?
I'd like to, not to share, to ask Adrien. He mentioned about design thinking and how to apply it to COVID-19. I'd like to get to know a little bit of what was the most exciting experience that you have done where you have applied design thinking for this critical stage of our time, COVID-19?
It's going to get a little bit personal, but it's more into my own family. So there are two elements that I think were really interesting. So I have 2 children, and we had to live with that confinement, with that lockdown. And to do so, well, we iterated a lot, and definitely we prototyped stuff to see how it works. And to be honest, it's been fuzzy and it's been wiggling, as Kevin said. It's been really weird in the beginning, but we wanted to solve that problem. It was the first time that we were so much with each other, and I have 2 boys that are literally living inside the park. Whenever we can put them outside, we go outside, because they need that. I live in a flat without any garden, and so I have to take that into account. So related to COVID-19, and I know it might sound a little bit like too personal and not too enough open to the world yet, but I had to fix that problem first so that I can then concentrate on other things. And this is where we definitely, even with the children that are quite young, we discussed it and we iterated and we ideated with them. So we said, okay, how can we fix it? What is the problem? Why do we get angry on this? Why are you happy with that? How can we? And then we literally, took time to see, observe, try to understand what was their problem, and then try to fix it. And what I'm quite happy with is that today it's somehow fixed. This is let's say, the one related to COVID-19, because I have that personal condition that you have to do family first so that you can take care of others after. But then in the business world, I didn't have stuff exciting, I would say, because I'm excited by little things. And the most exciting bit is when I had someone interviewed that wasn't, she was a potential customer. And then I asked a question because it was a business to employee kind of structure. And she almost started to cry at the end of our conversation, but it was not a cry like I was asking too tough questions, but it was asking like the right questions that completely stopped her, and she became 100% transparent with me, because we came to that point of me trying to put myself so much in her shoes that I was literally getting her, and so I was asking the tough question, even though that wasn't harsh, but that was like the real question where really everything stood. And this for me was like one of the moments that I will remember, I think, for a long time, because this is where you see something pivoting. And this is where someone talking to you about something then starts to be really transparent. And this is where all the magics happen, because you're like opening the world. You know, you have literally the answers coming one after the other. And so that was one of the main one.
Any more questions, comments, ideas?
Hi there. Hi there. Hello, Hugo. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I got here 30 minutes late. I couldn't hear Adrien, and I was very curious about it, and I'm just catching up. I would just want to share a small piece of work that I've been doing with small groups. I'm spending a little more time now emphasizing and getting insights, because that's a real good investment to understand the real pains of our group, of our team that is searching for some solutions, so that we can choose the right pain. Because if we can get feedback during early stages and choose a pain that everybody emphasizes with, it's much more easier. Sometimes the pain may be not the worst, but if it is the right for prototyping and move on quickly to have some sort of solution, we can sell better the idea that we are doing things that matter, okay? I'm trying that, for example, with Lego Serious Play nowadays, with some sort of gamification, and spending a little more time on that phase, because we gain by the end, okay? Thank you, just to share this idea, because it's getting smaller pieces and smaller pains to get faster to a solution. I'm not, I stopped being worried about great pains or big pains, but with pains that matter to provide quicker solutions, okay? Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here in the tribe.
Thank you very much. So find a small problem, sort that problem out, communicate with others the outstanding result of solving that problem, and then the movement towards innovation or design thinking might start. Very good. One last question, because we are running out of time. For Adrien, any comments? Okay, no. So goodbye. See you next time. It was a pleasure to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Merci beaucoup, Adrien.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.